Hello, everyone, and a warm welcome. My name is Simon from the studyabroadportal.com, and I'll be hosting today's webinar brought to you by UCD Smurfit Graduate Business School, titled Smurfit MBA Webinar, Start Your MBA Journey in Ireland. And on today's agenda, you will hear why should you choose Ireland, and specifically UCD Smurfit School, to study an MBA. You'll hear the course features, key elements of the Smurfit MBA will be presented. Moreover, the career prospects and the Smurfit Career Service will be discussed. You will hear everything you need to know about the application process, visa requirements, and the initial, I'm expecting about 30 minutes of presentation, will be followed by an interactive questions and answer session for which you, our esteemed live as well as on-demand viewers, can submit questions by typing them in the box called the Q&A, and you should be able to find it below me. Please keep in mind that we will be addressing a few topics, a few questions after the presentation, and those questions will be addressed verbally. For your more specific questions, or if you're watching this on demand, perhaps, those questions will be forwarded onto the staff and or faculty members of UCD Smurfit Graduate Business School, who in turn will get back to you, providing you with the answers, most likely via email. So please rest assured you will be taken care of, and you're free to submit as many questions as you'd like. And also, what I would like to avert your attention to before introducing the presenters, before connecting to Dublin, to Ireland, is a window called the resource list. A lot of useful information has been provided to you via that channel beforehand, so if you need any information, feel free to browse through that resource list, as I'm sure you will find it useful. And now I'm sure that you've heard enough from me. It is time to connect, as promised, to Dublin, to Ireland, and to meet the lovely panel of five presenters. Allow me to bring us side by side. On our left, we have Sophie Carey, the Senior Manager for the MBA programs. Hello, Sophie. I do apologize. Sophie's in the middle. Sophie Carey, yes, the Senior Manager, who will have a more birthday apologies, Sophie. But yes, on our left, then we have Miss Jessica Dowling, the MBA Admissions Manager. There we go. Now we're back on track. Mark Davis, the MBA Careers Manager. Greetings, Mark. Sophie, we've met. We also have an alumni present, Thomas Strimbo. Hopefully I pronounced your last name correctly, Thomas, of the cohort 2018. Brilliant. And last but not least, Yola Mar, the International Student Liaison Officer. Greetings to you, Yola, as well. Well, there we go. The perfect lineup to share the information across onto our live as well as on-demand viewers. And without further ado, Sophie, I believe the floor is now all yours.
Yes, thank you very much. So yeah, just a couple of slides really to take you through. My first slide really is why Ireland, and many international students choose Ireland because we're English speaking. We're considered to be a very friendly country and a very safe country. So those three reasons in themselves are a good reason to come to Ireland. But not only that, our education system ranks in the top 10 in the world, and you can see on the slide, according to the IMD World Competitiveness Report. So, and then my final point really is that we're a European hub for over 1,000 leading multinational companies. And if you see from this slide here, this is a brief slide from the IDA, which is the Irish Development Authority, showing you all of the technology companies that have chosen to base themselves or their European headquarters in Ireland. So I think this slide does speak for itself. There's a lot of technology and finance and fintech companies that have chosen Dublin and Ireland for the reasons that we've outlined. And also because there are a lot of skilled young employees coming out of our universities and our ITs who have got very much good education skills, and these companies want to tap into this. So just to briefly move on, why UCD Smurfit? A couple of reasons. We're consistently ranked in the top 100 of well-known kind of accrediting bodies such as the FT and the Economist. We have what is called the Triple Crown of Accreditation with the Association of MBAs, which is a UK body, AACSB, which is a US accrediting body, and EQUIS, which is a European accrediting body. And we also have a number of memberships and alliances, and one of those is the Global Network for Advanced Management, which I'll talk about briefly in a moment. Okay, so I suppose why UCD Smurfit and why UCD Smurfit MBA? First of all, just to mention our beautiful campus. So you will see from our website, and hopefully when you come to visit us, that we have a dedicated campus as part of UCD for our postgraduate business school. So lovely surroundings and very safe. Jessica, to my right, will speak to you about our admissions process. So we have a selective admissions process where we ensure that we have high quality students on our MBA program. Another thing to mention really, I guess, is our small class sizes, because, you know, when we speak to people in other MBA programs, we realize actually we've got very small class sizes, 30 to 40 in our full-time program. And you get one-to-one attention, you get to know your classmates really well, you get to know the faculty and the program administrators, and that's really, really important to the experience that you get here in the school. So I think that's one thing to highlight. The next point there really is the global focus of our program, and I mentioned the GNAM network. So we're the only Irish member of the Global Network for Advanced Management Schools. And this network was set up by Yale. There are 30 top business schools around the world who are GNAM members. And this means that our students have the opportunity to travel to one of our GNAM schools for week-long modules. So for example, this year in October, we had students going to Yale, to Berkeley, to Fudan, to UBC Sauder, to IE. And that's a fantastic connection, and our students get to mingle with other MBA students globally. And that global focus is interspersed throughout the MBA program. So I think that's a really good selling point. We have a huge alumni network. So we have an MBA alumni network of over about 4,000 MBA students. So you will find those students all over the world. And we have many, many international chapters globally. So no matter who you are or what you're doing, there will be an alumnus who has some experience or advice to offer you in that network. And obviously, of course, we have very, international faculty with experience globally who often teach on a global basis as well. And just finally, just a few key points really about our MBA program. Academic excellence is one thing we're known for here in Smurfit. The other thing to point out is it's an MBA, so the practical learning focus is really, really important. Our students work very much in groups throughout the program, and the emphasis is on learning practical skills and learning through doing. I'll mention global perspectives as well. And another point to highlight really is our leadership development program, where we invite guest speakers in to meet our students, high-profile guest speakers. We have master classes in technical and leadership skills as well. And we have also a dedicated Mba Careers Manager, Mark, to my right, who will be speaking to you as well. Okay, so that's all I want to say at this point, and I now want to hand you over to Tom, who is one of our MBA alum from 2018. Tom.
Great, thanks. So my name is Tom Strumu. I moved to Ireland explicitly for the MBA program. I moved here with my wife and 3 kids. I've been asked today to just simply relate some of my thoughts about my time during the MBA program, which is pretty easy. When I sat down to do it, though, I wound up with 2 full pages of notes about things that I really liked about the program, which in my 5 minutes is not going to cut it exactly. So what I did was I was able to categorize that into roughly 3 areas, and that's what I'll relate. The first area that really brought a lot of value from it was the quality of the education. And I'm sure somebody else here will be talking about the credentials of the professors, and I'll agree with that. But really, one of the things that I liked in terms of the quality of education was the delivery and format, which it came at you largely through case studies. And not only that, it came through group work. Almost every single thing you do throughout the MBA program happens in groups of like roughly 4 or 5. And just as an example, in the first semester, my group consisted of an Indian computer engineer, an Irish data scientist, a Kenyan schoolmaster who also owned an insurance company, and then an American entrepreneur. And in a case study where there is not a right and a wrong answer, there's a lot of perspectives and ways to proceed. You couldn't have gotten 4 people in a room who had more different ideas on each case study. And so while there was definitely a lot that I learned from the front of the classroom, there was equally as much that I learned from my group. And that changed from the first semester to the second semester to an entirely new group. And so that was invaluable. That was really amazing. The second thing I'll mention is the kind of the journey of self-discovery. I'm not a person who would bandy about a phrase like journey of self-discovery, but I did not anticipate changing as much personally and professionally over the course of the year as I did. And I think the reason for that is there's psychometric tests, multiple psychometric tests that you take that help you understand how you work, how you communicate, how you're perceived. But in addition to those tests, there's also workshops and kind of lessons where you are put into really uncomfortable and powerful situations with your cohort, where you're asked to share how you perceive them and then expected to listen to how they perceive you. And I really, really learned a lot about the way that I come across professionally, and it has dramatically changed the way that I work. The largest report, one of the psychometric tests that we got was I think it's called the ESCI. It's managed by Korn Ferry. It resulted in a 30-page document that was specifically tailored toward me and included research dating back as far as 10 years from people that I worked with that were custom responses or custom feedback about the way that I worked and about the way that I was perceived. I just can't overstate how incredibly important that was in changing me over the course of the year. So the last thing I'll say is that in addition to the fact that you're knocking out 17 courses over the course of 12 months, which already feels like blitzkrieg, and it really is. It's an amazing pace. There's a lot that happens outside of the classroom as well. The international trips are kind of the famous part of that. So over the course of the 12 months, I took a trip to South America, going to Peru and Chile, where we learned about how kind of just international markets and how work is done in South America. I went to Iceland and was serving as a consultant for a technology company in Iceland over a course of a week. And as Sophie mentioned, we also have the GM week, which I went to Yale for that and did a week on behavioral economics. The people that I have met over there, I'm still regularly in touch with even today. So those international trips were quite something. In addition to that, you know, we had black tie events that ran throughout the year and events at night, clubs. I was a member of the Entrepreneurship Society, which has had a big impact on me. And gosh, like I mentioned, I had 2 full pages of things that I'd love to share, and I just don't have the time. Just to say that today I get asked one question a lot, which was it worth it? And my answer is always yes. And I'm able to go on and on about that. I think for you who are sitting at home where I was 2 years ago, you might also find value in the program. So I'll leave it there, but thank you very much. Back to you then.
Okay, so now I'm going to hand over to Yola, who's our International Student Liaison Officer. Thanks, Yola.
Yes, I'm here just to briefly mention too the support that our international students receive. In my role as International Students Liaison Officer, I look after students during their relocation to Ireland and also during their journey when they are here throughout their studies. So I'm there to support students, answer questions, take calls and schedule Skype calls from the moment of inquiry. So when you inquire about the program and you have any questions, doubts, inquiries, you're more than welcome to contact me or any of the team. As a matter of fact, there's an incoming students portal. So from the moment you accept a place, you have access to our online portal with plenty of information. And again, I'm there to support students on one-to-one basis. Since the class is quite small and this role is specifically dedicated for international students, there's quite extensive support. There is also UCD Global Office based in the main campus. So as a team, we support students here throughout their journey. There is an immigration support, which is based in, again, UCD Global, and I'm part of the team looking after inquiries with regards to visas. This is pre-arrival and also post-arrival in terms of getting your Irish residence permit, and then the post-completion, your third level graduate program, which is Stamp 1G, which is a work permit for after you complete the program. This is again for students from outside EU. In terms of accommodation support, again, that's myself. I look after guiding students for on and off campus accommodation. We have a number of places allocated for this particular program for the MBA students here on campus, but I'm also there to support students who would prefer to live off campus. Orientation happens before, obviously, classes begin. So again, we have a number of staff here to help you to go through the transition smoothly and answer your questions and support you throughout that initial stage. And again, just ongoing support, I suppose, throughout your studies. So this is really to flag that the support for international students is quite extensive. And thank you. That's my contact details, my phone number, and my email address. If anybody has any query at this stage, I'll be more than happy to answer any questions.
Okay, and I think Mark is going to go next. Mark?
Yeah, thanks Sophie. Thanks, Fiona. So, hi everyone. My name is Mark, and I'm the Mba Careers Manager. So I help students help themselves find a job, basically. I've been here for almost a couple of years now. Prior to this, I worked in London. Some of you might be able to tell my accent's not Irish. I'm English, and I worked for a business school over there for almost 10 years as employer engagement manager, and joined the team here, as I said, almost a couple of years ago, working with students and employers on the job search side of things. I'm really enjoying my experience as a staff member as well. I'm dedicated to the MBA program, so I would spend the majority of my time supporting both full-time and executive MBA students at the school. And that would all be around job search. So job search strategy and job opportunities. And I've split that into sort of three broad areas. So self-awareness, which is around helping you work out what you want to do and what your strengths and weaknesses are, and then potentially matching that to the opportunities that are out there. So that second part is then, once you know what you want to do, where you want to work, what sector you're interested in, what type of role you might like, then it's working with employers to help students access those opportunities, find those opportunities that are a match for them and their aspirations. And then obviously a big part of what we do is, once you know what you want to do, you found a job opportunity you want to apply for, is then being successful in that. So it would be traditional support around CVs, cover letters, interview technique, negotiation, etc. So that might not be too much of a surprise to you. It's what most career services are there to do. Just to say, of course, a lot of the personal development and the skills development is within the MBA program and managed as part of the leadership development program. So we as a career service are very job search focused. Now, I would know a lot of colleagues across Europe at other business schools and career services, and I picked out maybe a few things that we do that you wouldn't find at every other business school. So because of the small class sizes, you know, the advantage to you with that is that I would tend to get to know the classes quite well, which obviously helps me identify the right opportunities for people and the type of support that people need. And we don't set a limit into how much you'd like to use the career service offering. So, of course, some people don't use us very much, they're very self-sufficient, and other people would want to meet with us quite regularly, and that's absolutely fine. We have a very successful MBA alumni mentoring program here as well, which gets extremely good feedback each year. And this is where we match each student with a senior alumnus out there in industry that is perhaps working in the sector or has had a career path that the student aspires to, so that they're also meeting with that person and benefiting from their specific expertise. So, I myself would be a generalist and would be able to support people regardless of the sector and job that they're looking at to an extent, but of course we supplement that with the experts who are the alumni who are actually out there working in that company right now. We also engage alumni and in fact recruiters through mock interviews each year. So we would give you the theory about how to conduct yourself effectively at interview, and then we would also give you the opportunity to practice that in a well, not a live setting, but an almost real life setting where a recruiter or an alumnus would interview you and then give you feedback on your performance. And lastly, we have an MBA, Experienced Higher Careers Fair each year. So roughly around kind of April, May, we would have a number of companies visiting us on campus to share their opportunities with our MBA students. So again, that's not something that every school that you're looking at might have. And I always say every careers presentation isn't complete without a slide with some fancy, attractive logos on it. So, you've heard already how, and I'm sure you know that Dublin is a massive hub for large tech firms, but what I do want to say is it's not just about tech. In fact, a large proportion of our students would go into consulting industry in particular, and that's experiencing very high growth at the moment, in line with the rest of the economy, to be honest. So a lot of call for consultants across strategy, management, IT consulting, and most of the firms growing very rapidly their numbers here. One small advantage, just to mention, of being a consultant in Ireland is there's a lot less travel than maybe the US or the UK, because predominantly both the consultancies and most of their clients would be based in Dublin. So that makes it slightly more appealing career move for some of our students. And in Ireland, you'd also find relatively large kind of pharmaceutical, food, aviation finance sectors as well, for example. But it has the full range of opportunities. I just want to pick up on something that Tom said as well. The MBA, don't forget, it's not just about the value of it isn't just about helping you get your next job. What I hear constantly from alumni who come back on campus for industry panels and that kind of thing is it's actually a lot of the value is making you more effective in your next job. So it's about the career progression and your impact beyond, year one. And that's why, for example, the FT measures salary and that kind of thing a few years out, because the value of the MBA should be about opening up opportunities once you get your foot in the door, and not just about, well, what's my first job and my first salary going to be outside of graduation. And also just to say that, we would advise people if they're looking at potential employers that you don't just read their website. You would talk to people actually working in that company to find out what it's like to work there, what their culture's like. And the same thing goes for business schools as well. Do your research and, hear from people like Tom, reach out to other alumni, see what they have to say, get a sense for what it's like to study here. I found it an incredibly friendly environment, and to some extent laid back, but laid back in a good way. Still very ambitious students, but looking to make a positive impact. And lastly, just to say on it's an exciting place to be as well at the moment. Most industries are really high growth. Every day you open the paper and a new company has set up an office here, or is expanding their office and moving to a bigger building, and that, that's great news for someone who works in careers, and also hopefully for you. So I should shut up now. But if you have any, I don't have a tendency to go on. If you have any questions, happy to field those.
Great. And just to hand over now, thanks Mark, to Jessica, our MBA Admissions Manager.
Okay, so first off, hi, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining the webinar. I hope you found it useful so far. I'm going to be covering now just kind of the basic steps. If hopefully you've enjoyed what you heard today and that you're interested in applying to our school, this is kind of how the application process works. So we're currently open for applications. We opened on the 1st of October of this year. We operate rolling admissions. So what that means is we don't have deadlines as such as to when you can apply, but what I would say is if you're applying internationally, that I would recommend applying by spring 2020 at the latest, just because places do fill up, and also with visas and getting accommodation, everything like that, it's better to give yourself a few months to get everything, everything organized before you arrive. And generally we do recommend for international students to maybe arrive about 4 weeks ahead of the class time, just to get yourself acclimatized, open a bank account, everything like that. So in terms of entry criteria, so the first thing you will need is a university degree. So you need to have finished university. You need to have a minimum of 3 years professional work experience. So what we mean by that is no internships, they're not counted towards it. It needs to be good, post-qualification employment. When we say, sometimes we do say managerial experience, but managing can be managing a budget, can be managing a timeline. It doesn't necessarily mean that you need to be managing a big team of people. So then the next thing that we look for would be a Gmat. So we do require a Gmat for our full-time students. The preferred minimum score is 600 out of 800. Now we do, I'll talk about this later, look at applications holistically. So if you are a little bit underneath that, please don't let that defer you from applying. But I would say, 646 is the class average for this year. And if you want a Gmat-based scholarship, you would be looking to have a Gmat of over 700. So we would also look for 2 letters of recommendation. There are 3 short essays. When I say short, I mean under 300 words, so they're really more like paragraphs. And then finally, there's a video interview. That's for the full-time MBA only. So you do all of this online. It's an online application. What I would recommend is you have those letters of recommendation, your Gmat, everything like that ready to go. Also, just to mention, if you are not a native English language speaker, you also need a TOEFL or an IELTS. So what I would recommend is that you have all your documentation ready to go, and then you start the application, and then you attach those. And once all that's submitted, then your application will be reviewed. Once the application is reviewed, and if you're deemed suitable, you'll be called for an interview, either in person, if you can be in Ireland, or via Skype. And then following on from that, you should hear a decision in a few weeks. So it's a fairly quick turnaround that we do because it is a rolling admission process. The interview process, what we look for really is, as mentioned, the core competencies. So having a degree, having the minimum work experience, meeting all the requirements. And then we also make sure that you are the right fit for the program because, as was spoken about earlier, it's a very small class. There's, between 30 and 40 people. As Tom mentioned, you won't just be learning from the lecturer or the professor at the top of the classroom. You're learning just as much from the people in your group, from your case studies, everything like that. So we need to ensure that everyone is a right fit for the class, that that people will be able to learn off each other. People bring different experience to the classrooms. And then finally, it is a holistic review process. So don't feel, if you got a 2-2 at your undergraduate, think, okay, there's no way I can apply, I won't get in. We do look at everything together and we review it as a person. There's a full admissions committee here that looks at all the applications. So don't feel, if you feel that you're falling down in one place, that you can't apply. By all means, do apply. If you do have any questions beforehand, please just contact me. My details will be in the last slide. I'm always happy to help individuals. This will just give you a little bit of an overview of the full-time versus part-time executive class cohorts. I know most people on this webinar will be looking at the full-time, but again, just to give you an idea. So for the full-time MBA, it's a 12-month MBA, but it's very, very intensive. So you will be studying full-time for those 12 months. The average age is about 29 in the class with 7 years work experience. And you can see there that the ratio of male and females is pretty equal, and we have a good amount of international participants. And then the part-time, it offers more flexibility, but you would need to be living and working in Ireland. You wouldn't be able to get a student visa to do a part-time course. It would be only something if you're perhaps considering moving to Ireland. As Mark said, there's huge employment opportunities here at the moment. That is something that you can bear in mind as well. And just finally, these are some useful resources and tips. So the full-time MBA and the executive MBA class keep a blog throughout the year, and that blog is all about their experiences in the MBA. So that's a great resource that you can find out what they're doing in real time. We have alumni testimonials. I can also put you in touch with alumni if you are interested in speaking to particular alumni. We have a YouTube channel, and just there as well, the last two things, we have a range of scholarships. And they're all listed on our website, so please do have a look at all of those. I would definitely recommend applying for a scholarship because there's numerous ones available, especially for international students. And then finally, upcoming events, do keep an eye on that. We do international events as well. We can be in your market, so please do keep an eye on that as well. And then, this is finally, sorry. Those are just my contact details, but they'll be in the slides if you want to contact.
Thank you very much to Jessica, Mark, Sophie, Thomas, and Yola. That was from our left to right. Hopefully I've remembered your names now correctly. I do apologize, Sophie and Jessica. Mix up at the beginning. But the task at hand, as the slide indicates, yes, Q&A, questions and answers. I believe all of the information has been shared throughout the presentation. However, if you have any queries left unanswered, now would be the time, if you haven't done so, to submit them by typing them in the Q&A box. And in fact, I do have, I believe, 2 questions regarding admissions. Therefore, I believe, Jessica, the floor might be yours. Let's see. Regarding English proficiency, let me see if I can rephrase both. What would be the English language requirements? If so, and are there any exemptions?
So there are no exemptions, and the English language requirements are for IELTS, it's 7 overall band score with a minimum of 6.5 in each. And for the TOEFL, I believe it's 105 in the academic. I can check. It's either 103 or 105 in the academic is the minimum. So we do look for, there's no exemptions for if, for example, you studied in English but are from a non-English speaking country, that there aren't exemptions available. The only exemption would be if you studied in an English language country. So for example, if you did your undergraduate in the UK or the US or Australia, then we can give you an exemption. But otherwise, no, you do need to have one.
Thank you very much, Jessica, for answering our first question. And with our first Q&A question out of the way, allow me to bring up our first of 3 polling questions. Simply, we would like to know if you found out information that you required. It might be a bit early on in the webinar, so I'll leave it on screen for a brief moment. Before moving on to the next one, well, the next Q&A question. Let's see, perhaps it should be worth clarifying. I have Petra here wanting to know what would be the difference between an MBA equaling to a master's program degree or similar nature?
Well, I suppose maybe I'll take that one. So a master's program here in the school is typically aimed at people who have just come directly from their undergraduate or may have 1 or 2 years experience. And we have a range of specialist master's programs. So you would typically be studying something specific, for example, quantitative finance or human resource management. And as I said, it's really kind of specializing where you maybe haven't specialized with your undergraduate degree. And an MBA is targeted really at people with greater experience and who, for example, typically in our full-time program, people who maybe have studied, for example, engineering, and they want to kind of climb the career ladder or change careers, but they maybe never have studied business. And, you know, as Jessica alluded to earlier, on average, you know, we would have people with about 7 to 10 years experience on the full-time program. Our minimum requirement is 3 years professional experience, but typically we will get people with greater experience. So the difference really is that an MBA is a general management degree which covers human resources, finance, strategy, management, and some other topics for people who haven't done management previously and possibly wish to change career and have more experience than master's students. So hopefully that's a clear answer to your question.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think it's also, so if you have experience, it's not that we wouldn't necessarily accept you onto a specialist master's program here, but you'd have to be aware that the majority of the people on the program would have very little work experience. Many of them will be coming from their first degree. And clearly, I mean, one of the advantages of being on the MBA program is that you're learning a lot off people who have experience. So everyone in the class will be bringing experience. And as Tom said, you know, that's part of the value. And it also, of course, then in terms of the network that you graduate with, and you know, where companies would look at MBAs would be at a more senior level than they might look at MSc students as well. Plus, I think you just generally, it's not just about the content of the courses. I think as an MBA, you know, you get a lot more additional support and activities and trips, and you know, so there's a dedicated Mba Careers Manager, for example, and we do obviously have great career support for the MSc programs, but it wouldn't be quite so tailored, quite so individual, and we wouldn't go into so much depth. There wouldn't be the same level of support, and equally with the leadership development program, skills development, and psychometrics and that kind of thing. I mean, there's so much more of that on the MBA than there are on any of the MSc programs.
Thank you to Mark and Sophie for answering that question. We are also now bringing up our second polling question before moving on to our next Q&A. If our audience members, that is live attendees as well as on-demand viewers, do you intend to apply for the UCD Smurfit MBA? Would it be yes, no, maybe? There's a submit button in order to finalize your answers. Please do utilize it. Otherwise, your efforts will have been in vain. And then I had a few questions that were regarding admissions. Let me see. Firstly, two attendees are asking both for different ones, but is it possible to perhaps submit a document after they've applied? For instance, Gmat or the English.
Yeah, so it really depends on the document and the application overall. Ideally, you would submit everything together, but what we can do is we can review applications that are missing either a Gmat score or an IELTS or a TOEFL, but we would need the date on when you're planning to apply. So say, for example, you would like to apply now, but your Gmat is booked for next February. You can by all means apply, and then if you were made an offer to join the program, it would be called a conditional offer, and the condition would be that you meet that Gmat requirement. So we do allow it for Gmat and English language, but it's really on a case-by-case basis. So if we see an application and it's missing one document, then we can go ahead. But if you're missing both Gmat and an English language, or if we're waiting on your transcripts, for example, we may hold off interviewing you until we get more documentation. So the answer is it's a case-by-case basis, really.
Thank you very much, Jessica. Let's also bring up our third and last polling question. What are the deciding factors for attendees in their choice of an MBA? Feel free to give us feedback. And then moving back to the Q&A, I believe I had a good question from Gmat regarding the timeline of the admission process. We'd like to know what is the time period between submission, or between the application submission, perhaps the interview offer. What happens after the interview towards the final offer? What would be the timeline?
That's a very good question. Sorry, I should have touched on that a little bit more. So what we're doing, as I mentioned before, we do rolling admissions. So once we receive your completed application, it will be reviewed. But then what we are doing for this year is that we are doing our interviews in sort of batches, so once a month. And that's really just because we have so many interviews that we have to do. It's to just process it that way. So if you were to apply in the month of December and have everything in the month of December, you would be interviewed in January. And then following on from your interview, you would hear in normally 5 to 7 days the outcome of your interview. So it really depends on when you apply. But what I would recommend, especially for international applicants, is to get their application in as soon as possible and have it complete, because we won't be able to review your application until it is complete. But if you were to submit an application in mid-December, you would have your interview then in January. So that's how it's working this year. So overall, I would say a 5 or 6 week process.
And we'll have a scholarship deadline as well.
The scholarship deadlines depend on the scholarship.
Yeah.
So the particular one that they're applying for.
Thank you, Jessica. And moreover to Mark for touching that topic. In fact, I have 3 attendees, Jose, Aradna, and one attendee whose name I dare not to pronounce. I do apologize. And it is regarding financial matters. Firstly, let's take the question would be, are there any scholarships available for international students? And yes, when they apply for the program, do they also simultaneously apply for the scholarship? Is it a one-for-all application or perhaps 2 separate submissions?
Yes, so I said that link was up earlier. If you want to have a look at the scholarships, there's a range of scholarships available. The majority of them are open to international students, so please just have a look. We have scholarships based on region, women on the MBA, high Gmat scholarships, entrepreneur. We have a range of scholarships, but we honestly don't have time to go through them all, unfortunately. What I would say is when it comes to application, there will be a question within the application form asking, do you want to apply for a scholarship? That's where you say yes, you pick the scholarship you are most interested in and you apply for it there. There isn't a separate application unless you're applying for what's called the Aspire Scholarship. And again, you can find information on that on our website. And what would happen as an international student is if you were to be made an offer, if you were to be made an offer of a scholarship, you would be made the offer of the scholarship with your initial offer. But what I would always say is what we try to do is to be as fair as possible is to give people scholarships when they apply. But if there's leftover funding or if there's further scholarships available later in the year, then we'll allocate them as well. So for example, you could be made an offer of a place in the program and a bursary of 25%, but that 25% could become 50% later in the year once once the final scholarships have been awarded.
Jessica, can I comment on that?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So I was not fully aware of the Aspire program or the Aspire scholarship when I was applying, and I really, really wish I had paid more attention to that. One of the nice benefits about graduating from UCD MBA is the network that you wind up with at the end of it. And as a subset of that, the Aspire program is an immensely valuable network, even more so than just the MBA. They're very active. There's a lot of support there that extends well into your career. And so for anybody that's out there that's considering applying, I'd say focus especially on that one, because it's really worth it.
Yeah, for sure. And that is the only one that has a separate application process and also a separate interview process as well. So it is a little bit more in depth, but as Tom said, it's the Aspire network, and being part of the Aspire family is it's a very powerful thing.
You mentioned that you could get a bursary at percentage and then hear more later. I happened to be in our trip to Yale. I was in the room with one of our guys when he got the call that said that he had actually earned a full ride scholarship. So we were already in the program.
Yeah. And that does, yeah.
I think it was through the Smurfit
Foundation,
but you've never seen a guy so happy in his life.
We always try to be as fair as possible in that we have the bursaries that we can allocate. We will never not, because what will happen is people will be allocated a bursary and then ultimately won't be able to join the program, maybe due to personal issues. And so we will always redeploy that funding. We will never keep it back from people. So that's why amounts can change and fluctuate.
Yeah, and I mean, definitely look at the scholarships. I would say you gain very generous compared to some other schools that you would find, and the reason for that is that the quality of our class is very important to us, and we have a great class of 30 to 40 each year because of that, which is a real bonus for the school.
Thank you to all three for answering that question. And I do have a follow-up question from Aradna regarding scholarship. How many scholarships do they apply for as part of their application? Can they apply for one, for many?
You apply for one, that you only have the option to apply for one, but you will be considered for all scholarships that you are eligible for. So for example, if you apply for a Gmat scholarship, you may not necessarily get a Gmat scholarship, but you could get a regional scholarship or a scholarship for an entrepreneur scholarship or similar to that. So you will be considered for all of them, but just the way the application works, you can only apply technically for one.
Thank you, Jessica. And we've restricted Thomas by giving him little presenting time. Thomas, however, I do have interest from the audience members wanting to know more about your situation. We have Olga here with a similar situation to yours, is also considering coming to Ireland with her family, husband and a son. If you could share your experience when you brought your family to Ireland, are there any benefits, which challenges you faced?
Benefits and challenges. Yeah, so I'll go for that. So my wife and I both decided to pursue higher education at the same time. So we both started our master's degree at UCD. It was a small miracle that we were both accepted into the programs that we really wanted, and that just happened to work out really nicely. Our three sons, I don't know how old her son would be, but our three sons were all school-aged, and it was really easy to get accepted. Oh, well, actually, they've been very welcoming in having our boys in their schools. It's finding the right school for them. Dublin right now is quite crowded, and it did take us a minute. You mentioned showing up 4 weeks in advance to make sure that everything is situated. I'd back that up. It did take us a little bit of effort to try and get the spots for all three of our boys in the same place. But you know, I don't know. I was also a scholarship recipient. I didn't get a full ride like my friend there, but that did help us go and make the whole year a lot easier. So I'd say rely on that.
Thank you very much. Just go ahead.
I was just going to say I'm happy to extend my contact information to anybody who's interested in talking a little bit more about it in person. So.
Brilliant.
Afterward, they can get in touch with the school and pass it along to me or whatever.
Yes, Olga, simply do let us know through the Q&A panel, whichever channel you prefer. All of your questions will be forwarded, and I'm sure that the staff and the faculty members will be more than happy to oblige you. Well, in fact, Thomas here in this case. Thomas, I do have one more question from an audience member, this time specifically regarding the program. Would you say that the program was designed to put learning into practice? If you could give them perhaps an example, Reen would like to know.
Exclusively, yes. It is not long on theory. It is by virtue of the fact that everything is based in case studies. We are working with not just working with maybe Harvard case studies from 15 years ago. Neve Brennan runs a corporate finance class, and the content of her course comes out of the newspaper every morning. As a matter of fact, it's a requirement of your course, if you're going to get a good grade, that you submit something to her in advance of the class along with your evaluation and analysis of the situation that's happening. So it's immediate, and that goes on in just about every single class that you've got, from negotiation to managerial accounting. You're looking for something that's relevant, like today. So I'd say yes.
Thank you very much, Thomas. Let's see, what else do we have in the Q&A? We have quite a few more questions, although if we don't have time to address your specific one, I see a few attendees naming their educational background. Those questions do have to be assessed one-on-one, and they most likely will be assessed after the session. But allow me, I had a really good question regarding the program, so to speak, was the topic. And the question was, if it's possible, yes, to go and do a semester abroad, perhaps in France. Holly would like to know, how would that work?
Okay, so I'll take that one. So it is possible, yes. So as part of the full-time MBA, we have a number of international exchange agreements with partner universities. It's not an option that is taken up by many students, but what you can do is take a semester abroad at the end of the full-time program. So that would extend your program by another 3 months. So for example, currently we have a student who was a student of the graduating class currently, so 18 and 19, but she is now in New York Stern, taking an additional 3-month semester abroad. So as you can imagine, the full-time program is, 12 months, it's very short. You can't do this during those 12 months, but you can do potentially this at the end of the program. And as I said, we have a number of international exchange agreements. So you would extend your stay, or you would pay an amount of fees to be a continuing UCD student. The disadvantage really is you wouldn't graduate with your class, you would graduate with the following year's class, but obviously there are huge advantages to that. And in fact, we're going to present to our current students about these international exchange opportunities at the end of this month. So it's something that you will learn about when you're on the program. And it's very much an optional kind of thing you can do.
I wonder if it'd be worth talking about Yale's Masters of Advanced Management follow-on as well.
Sure, actually, yeah. So good point, Tom. Thank you. So there is a program that is offered by Yale called the MAM program, the Masters of Advanced Management. It's designed for people who have done an MBA and actually wish to do an even more advanced program. And we have a particularly strong relationship with Yale. And so every year, 1 or 2 students typically go on to do this program, and I think it's a 12-month program from what I can remember, Tom. Yeah. So there is, I suppose the point here is we have a lot of connections and we have a lot of opportunities for students to travel abroad. Tom has mentioned the international trips that we do. This year our students are going to China or Argentina, and we also have our international consulting project, which is going to be in Lisbon. Tom's class would have gone to Iceland. But this class will go to Lisbon. And we also have our global network of advanced management schools, which I mentioned already. We have the opportunity for students to go to Yale or Berkeley, to one of the network schools. So there are 3 separate opportunities to go abroad for 3 weeks, but the international exchange is a separate 3-month exchange at the end of the program, as well as in addition to the Masters in Advanced Management opportunity through Yale. So I don't know, hopefully that answers the question.
It does.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay, as well as reminding you about the connection. And perhaps a question relevant here would be, we were just discussing the semester abroad. Konstantin, however, would like to know if it's possible to do the program through distance learning, or does it have to be on-site?
No, it's not currently possible to do the program through distance learning. It is on-site, absolutely, yeah. So unfortunately not at the moment, and maybe something we look at for the future.
Thank you nonetheless. Hopefully you guys have time to answer a question or 2 more, because I see a few that might be quite important, but the next one, important, however simple, are the classes taking place from Monday to Friday? That is Time Mba?
Yeah, that's correct. The classes are typically Monday to Friday. However, there can be some sessions that we run, so for example, through careers and occasionally on Saturdays. And we have a lot of events and career panels and different programs that sometimes run in the evenings. But really, when you join, you get access to a calendar which will give you your timetable for the year. And there is always a little bit of movement in that. And as Mark knows, there can be some sessions that happen on a Saturday, which are opt-in career sessions. But we, of course, always encourage our students to be available and to go to those sessions as well.
Thank you yet again, Sophie. And I believe I have the last question for Jessica. It is regarding the application process. Aradna here saying that the Smurfit website mentions they're supposed to upload a self-appraisal video as part of their application. But in the actual application page, there is no such link. If you would perhaps care to elaborate.
Yeah, so what happens there is once you submit your application, you will be emailed a link to complete the video. So it's called, it's the company that runs it is called Kira Talent. And so once you submit your application, you'll get a link, and then all you need to do is you'll be asked 3 competency-based questions, and you record, a bit like how we're speaking now, you just record yourself on video answering the questions, and they're very straightforward questions, such as, and the questions around leadership and, international relations and things like that. And you have about a minute to answer the questions. I really would not. Sometimes I think people kind of panic or, think it's, a very difficult thing to do. It's not. It's really just so we can see you face to face, because as you can imagine, we get hundreds and hundreds of applications for very few spots. And so we do like to see people face to face before we schedule interviews. So no, you won't see it on the website. It's only once you submit it will you get that link.
Thank you very much, Jessica. And I believe we have discovered, apologies, we have discussed all the topics either in the presentation or now in the Q&A. I also see no new topics being written in the Q&A. Therefore, we are wrapping up today's live webinar, that is. And in order to do so, allow me to bring up the contact information slide should you decide to contact UCD Michael Smurfit Graduate Business School in one form or another. There it is. And in order to start wrapping up the session, allow me to firstly thank our on-demand viewers, of course. Hopefully this session was informative, and I sure hope that some of you are seriously, though, considering to apply to the full-time MBA program being presented in today's webinar. Wishing you the best of luck with your future study, as well as professional endeavors later on in your life. And of course, a very special thank you to the lovely panel of 5 presenters. On our left, this time really we had Jessica Dowling. Next to her, Mark David. Then we had Sophie Carey. We had and last but not least, Yola Mar. Guys, thank you so much for taking the time, for sharing the expertise. Would you happen to have any last-minute closing comments before we say goodbye?
We're amazing.
Yeah, come to UCD Smurfit. We're amazing, as Mark said. Yeah, we hope to hear from you. And I think, as Jessica said, we're very approachable. So we're very happy to talk to people one-to-one and answer any individual questions.
Yes,
because I know
just get in touch.
This type of forum doesn't answer everyone's questions, but we certainly can answer them individually as well. So we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good time to all of the participants in today's webinar. And this is Simon, your host, signing off by wishing you perhaps a good morning, could be a good afternoon, or who knows, maybe even a good evening from wherever you may be. Thank you again for watching, and goodbye.